Nifemi's childhood was filled with love and warmth, the kind only her mother, Fayokemi, could provide. Fayokemi was known throughout Lagos not just for her beauty but for her kindness and good nature. She was a very empathetic woman who made time for everyone, from the people of high class in the society to the poor people who came to her from time to time for help. Fayokemi loved spending quality time with her daughter, Nifemi, as they shared precious moments together, like baking, going on a walk around their estate, or reading a story to her hearing, their laughter echoing throughout the house. Fayokemi made sure that Nifemi felt loved and secured around her. She always made sure to tell her how much she loved her, and Nifemi would smile, her heart swelling with love. She knew she had the best mother anyone would wish to have. Fayokemi's best friend, Ebere, was an elegant lady who had a great fashion sense. Ebere had a commanding presence, and her laughter was always very bold and loud. Nifemi grew up to know Ebere as her mother's best friend. She was always there for the family, especially her mother. She would watch them sit and have meaningful conversations for hours. She was a shoulder to cry on, as her mother, Fayokemi, always shared sensitive parts of her life with her. Ebere became not just a friend to Fayokemi, but a sister. She made sure to attend all the family functions and would often come visiting, bearing gifts for little Nifemi. But beneath her smile and warm personality, Nifemi noticed small signs of insincerity of Ebere to her mother, even though she was just a child, but could not place a finger on what she had sensed. Nifemi always saw her through her laughter as cold and not from her heart. Whenever she hugged her, she noticed her hug was not warm as it should be. On one occasion, Nifemi saw Ebere looking at her mother's lines of perfume and jewelries with a look that she knew wasn't that of admiration, but something she couldn't place her finger on. However, she brushed all her feelings aside, thinking she was being paranoid and overthinking things. After all, Ebere was her mother's best friend and she was just a child. Nifemi's father, Mr. Gbadebo, was a very hardworking and wealthy man who had various businesses and estates to his name. He was a very famous and respected man who held his family dear to his heart. He loved Fayokemi and their only child, Nifemi, so much that he built a world around them. Despite his busy schedule, he always made sure to create time for his family. But everything changed after Fayokemi became suddenly ill one day. She had felt a very sharp pain on her chest and couldn't breathe. Panic filled the house as Mr. Gbadebo rushed to his phone to call as many doctors as possible to come to their house immediately. The doctors came with their facilities and tried to stabilize her, but her condition grew worse as she kept gasping for breath, and within hours, Fayokemi was pronounced dead by the doctors. An autopsy was carried out on her, and the official cause of her death was listed as a sudden heart attack. Grief enveloped the entire family as Mr. Gbadebo was broken and could not think of life without Fayokemi by his side. But he tried to stay strong for their only child, Nifemi, who was only 9, but yet felt the impact of her mother's demise like a sudden blow. She would sit at a corner all day crying. Her mother's absence left a vacuum in her heart that she knew no one else could fill. Mr. Gbadebo became a shadow of himself as he felt shattered while drowning in his grief. It was at these vulnerable moments that Ebere stepped in. She would come to the Gbadebo's estate with food and made sure that they ate something. She helped Mr. Gbadebo to manage his affairs. She was a shoulder to cry on. She would care for Nifemi and tried to console her. with the way Ebere seemed to slide effortlessly into the role as the new woman of the house. Nifemi felt that it was too awkward but brushed the feeling aside. Things happened quickly and so fast, and soon Mr. Gbadebo got married to Ebere, who had been of great help to the family after his beloved wife's demise. As Nifemi grew older, she could feel the changes in her household, as things never remained the same again, and she would wish every day that her mother was still alive. Ebere played the role of a perfect woman in the public for the cameras. She was attentive, kind, elegant and charming, hosting lavish dinner and fundraisers. But behind closed door, she was a different person entirely, as she would shout and raise her voices at her maids, who were very scared of her. She even went to the point of throwing a sharp object at one of their housemaids one day because she sensed that she wasn't paying good attention to her while she spoke. She would order the servants around while she did nothing. Ebere did not show her true colors to Gbadebo. She was always sweet and caring whenever he was around, but with only her and Nifemi alone, there was no need to pretend. As they barely spoke to each other, their relationship became somewhat strained, with silent mutual disdain. Mr. Gbadebo was blind to all of Ebere's manipulation. His grief had made him vulnerable, and he had leaned on Ebere for comfort in his darkest moments and saw her as his savior. Few years later, Mr. Gbadebo fell ill. At first, he thought it was a minor chest pain, but as days went by, Mr. Gbadebo became weak and weary. His grip on things became loosed. His doctor told him he needed to rest, and so he became less frequent at his office. Nifemi was very worried, as she would sit close to her father, holding his hand and begging him to be strong. Ebere also was worried, as she cared and tended for her sick husband. Exactly a week after Mr. Gbadebo's illness started, things became worse one afternoon when Mr. Gbadebo struggled to breathe and gasped for breath. The doctors were called, and when they got to the house, they pronounced Mr. Gbadebo dead. Nifemi couldn't take the loss of her father. She cried uncontrollably and wondered why life was being unfair to her by taking everyone she loved around her. Soon after Mr. Gbadebo's death, dignitaries from all walks of life came to the house to pay condolence visits to the family. To Nifemi's disdain, whenever sympathizers came to their house to pay them condolence visits, Ebere would be very sober. She would cry her eyes to pop. Sympathizers would be so moved by her tears that they would console her with tears also in their eyes while offering comforting words to her. But immediately they left, Ebere's sad countenance would change to a rather nonchalant or carefree attitude. Nifemi was shocked at the way she switched character easily and became suspicious of her behavior and actions. She would sit alone and cry, feeling all alone. After Gbadebo's death, Ebere took charge of all his businesses and oversaw his estate. But after the burial, Ebere received the shock of her life as Gbadebo willed virtually everything to his daughter, Nifemi, and left her with only few assets she considered as nothing. Ebere was infuriated but did not show it to anyone, as she hid her true emotions with fake smiles and kind words. Ebere saw Nifemi as the only thing that was standing in the way of her complete control of Gbadebo's empire. One afternoon, Nifemi was walking through the corridor of their study when she heard Ebere's voice inside the study. Her voice was low, but for some odd reasons, Nifemi stood by the door to eavesdrop on her conversation. Her ears piercing through the closed door, the voice became pretty audible to her hearing. Ebere was speaking with her secret lover. "Yes, my love," the voice said. Don't worry yourself, everything is under control. Or don't you trust my capabilities anymore? The thing is, I don't want to go the same route I took with her parents. As Ebere continued to speak, tears welled up in the eyes of Nifemi. She realized that her instincts were right from the beginning. She brought out her recorder, which was inside her pocket, her hands trembling as she began to record the monologue. No, babes. Listen to me. People may begin to suspect the trend if something of such nature happens to Nifemi. I don't want to poison her drink and kill her gradually and slowly like I did to Gbadebo or even her mother. Hers will be a little bit different. Honey, just trust me on this one now. She laughed and chuckled on the phone for a bit before she finally hung up. Nifemi kept the recorder in her pocket, cleaned her tears, and hurriedly left the corridor in order not to be noticed by Ebere. Nifemi went to her room and hid the recorder inside her purse, which she locked with her secret pin. Few hours after Nifemi overheard Ebere's wicked conversation with a stranger whom she believed was her secret lover, Nifemi was devastated as she paced round her room with anger while thinking of the next step of action to take in order to get justice for her parents. As she was still thinking of her next move, Ebere came into her room with a bright smile. This Nifemi found very unusual, as they barely talked. With time, they have learned to maintain their distance. Ebere invited Nifemi on a private boat cruise. I know these past few months have been a really terrible one for both of us, but I think we should go out today and have fun, she said with a concerned voice while holding Nifemi's hand. Nifemi wanted to brush off her filthy hands from her as rage filled her heart, but she tried to control herself in order not to give a hint to Ebere that she already knew how evil she was. She agreed to go to the boat cruise with her in order for Ebere not to suspect anything. Nifemi and Ebere stepped into the boat. It was big. The interior and exterior spoke of nothing less than luxury and class. Nifemi went to a corner inside the boat and sat down. Ebere, who had noticed how quiet and unexcited Nifemi was, came to her and asked her if everything was okay, while staring deeply into her eyes as though to figure out what was in her mind. After they had sat there for some minutes, Ebere tried to make the environment lively. "Let's go out to watch the water waves and the beautiful sky," she said, as she pulled Nifemi's hand gently. Nifemi, who had hesitated for a bit, saw herself following Ebere. They both stood on the deck as they watched the water waves and the beautiful sky. It was a beautiful sight to behold. Nifemi didn't say a word as she was lost in her own thoughts. But suddenly, Nifemi felt a hand grip her. It was very firm. She turned to look as she felt a rush of panic and emotions sweeping through her entire body. She turned to Ebere. "Let go of me. What are you doing?" Nifemi asked, with a voice mixed with fear and rage. "I am doing what I ought to have done a long time ago," Ebere said as she grabbed Nifemi's hand more tightly. Nifemi struggled to loosen her grip, but Ebere was relentless. The two women struggled as they fought to the edge of the deck, the ocean breeze blowing through the tensed atmosphere. Then suddenly, Nifemi missed her step and lost her balance. Ebere took advantage of that moment, and with a final shove, Ebere pushed her stepdaughter into the ocean. Nifemi tried to call for help, the cold piercing through her body like a knife, and within minutes she was swallowed by the ocean. Ebere stood at the edge of the deck as she watched the water cover Nifemi quickly. Then in that moment, she smiled. She knew it was all over and that Mr. Gbadebo's weight was now hers. She ordered the captain of the boat, who was unaware of what had happened, to turn around and go back to the shore. The captain did as he was commanded. Ebere got back to Gbadebo's estate and pretended as if nothing had happened. The next day afternoon, she picked up her phone and called the Inspector General of Police with tension and panic in her voice. She told the IG that Nifemi had not come back home since yesterday and that it was not in her character to sleep out. After 24 hours of Nifemi's disappearance, she was declared missing and the police immediately swung into action in searching for her. Ebere played the grieving stepmother in public. She would always cry and beg the police and everyone involved in the case to do what they could to find her stepdaughter. "She is all that I have left. Please help me," she would say, sobbing uncontrollably. However, since Nifemi was nowhere to be found, Ebere became in charge of Gbadebo's entire empire. The police did everything to find Nifemi. After months of searching for her proved abortive, they became tired of the search. Months went by quickly, and Ebere soon began to meet with her secret lover in a discreet location, far from the prying eyes of the public. She began to mount pressure on Gbadebo's lawyer to transfer all the assets of late Mr. Gbadebo to her since Nifemi was nowhere to be found. The lawyer set a date for the transfer of ownership from Nifemi to her. As days for the transfer drew closer, Ebere's lover came to visit her in Gbadebo's estate more frequently. She knew that tongues may wag behind her back, but she didn't care and couldn't wait to flaunt him to the world. Ebere was well dressed for the occasion. Her face beamed with smile and her heart was filled with excitement. Today was going to change the trajectory of her life for good, and she couldn't be more glad. Today, all the properties and assets of late Mr. Gbadebo was going to be transferred to her, since there was no other person fit for the transfer other than herself. Soon enough, Gbadebo's lawyer began to arrive the estate one after the other. They all sat at the study of the house while they await orders. Within few minutes, they were all complete and started the process of finalizing the transfer. Ebere sat at the head of the long mahogany table with a pen in hand and a smug smile on her lips. But that smile soon vanished when the doors burst open and Nifemi stormed into the study. The atmosphere in the room changed as the lawyers were surprised at her reappearance. Their face had a mixture of excitement and shock at the same time. Ebere's face immediately turned ghostly pale, her eyes widened with disbelief. "Nifemi," she whispered, her voice cracking. How come you are alive?" Nifemi's voice was clear and strong. "So you think you could kill me? Ebere, you think you could take away everything that my father labored for and built and get away with it? You threw me into the ocean and left me there to die. With all your wicked deed over my family, God decided to spare my life. The moment you left, I was saved by a fisherman who resuscitated me and brought me back to life. Yes, I decided to lie low all these months to see how things would play out and unfold gradually. And then, one day, I read on the newspaper of the property transfer and I knew it was a cue for me to come back." She turned to her father's lawyers and said, "This woman sitting here is a monster. She killed my parents." Their eyes widened with mixture of shock and surprise. Ebere's composure crumbled as police officers alerted by Nifemi on her way to the estate, stepped forward and arrested Ebere. Her initial protest turned into desperate sobs as the police officers took her away. Nifemi charged Ebere with 2 counts murder and attempted murder. The first day in the court, Ebere stood her ground and told the judge that it was all a lie and that there was no evidence to prove otherwise. She pleaded not guilty to the court. But Nifemi smiled while holding her head high as she brought out the recorder she had hid in her room. She handed the recorder to the judge as evidence. The monologue was played for everyone to hear. Ebere froze as she listened, tears streaming down from her eyes. She knew that her game was over. Ebere was sentenced to life imprisonment with hard labor. Nifemi was restored as the rightful heir to Gbadebo's empire. Though her heart was broken from all that had happened in her life, she was grateful to God for giving her a second chance to life. Nifemi built on the legacy of her father and continued from where he had stopped, with the hope that her parents would be proud of the woman their little girl had become. She invested in the community where she had stayed with the fisherman after she was rescued and made sure that necessary amenities was brought into the community. The fisherman who had rescued her that fateful day became a father figure to Nifemi. He loved her with all his heart and was always there for her whenever she needed him. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel to help us grow if you have enjoyed this story. Also, tell us in the comment section what you loved about the story and the valuable lessons you have learned from the story. Like and share this video to your friends, family and loved ones. Until I come your way again, for now, it's bye.